you've been following the videos I've been doing on this channel, you know that I have, well, let's just say, profound questions about the type of diversity slash anti-racist slash critical race theory slash social justice training that is now inundating so many organizations in this country. Now, for those of you who maybe don't know me, maybe this is the first video you've watched, I'm an organizational psychologist by trade. I have spent years of my life working with organizations all around the world to help create better, more fulfilling work experiences that focus on positive, productive communication, collaboration, productive conflict, all those sorts of things. The things that organizations need out of their individual and their teams, their individual employees and their teams, in order to not only create healthy work environments that create fulfilling experiences for their employees, but also that meet bottom line business goals. And for my money, what I have said from the very beginning is that this type of training, this type of anti-racist or critical race theory, social justice, implicit racial superiority, whatever you want to call it, it has a whole bunch of different names. This type of training is one of the things that is going to skewer teamwork in organizations. It is going to be incredibly detrimental. And yet organizations are jumping on the bandwagon because if they don't release their Black Lives Matter statements and do the work as the anti-racist trainers tell you, they think that there's going to be backlash publicly. And I say that really, I'm not being facetious when I say that. Every single executive that I have talked to one-on-one, because they will never say this publicly, but they do say it one-on-one, they tell me flat out, they don't care about this stuff. They don't think this stuff is good. What they're trying to do, though, is avoid their company being mobbed on social media by these little outrage mobs that are now taking over our country in places like Seattle and Portland and Minneapolis and all of the other places where we've seen, you know, I have no problem with peaceful protests, but looting and rioting and burning businesses to the ground. Organizations are afraid that these people are going to come for them. And so they're taking these steps to start implementing these practices internally, and I don't think it's good. Now, some of you have done me the great service of emailing me documents that your organization is sending out, because one of the things that organizations don't understand is they're pissing off half their staff when they do these. I mean, statistically speaking, about 50% of the staff of any organization is overtly not going to favor this nonsense. And so you guys have been like a network of little spies for me. You guys email me documents all the time. It's incredibly helpful to understand what this training looks like. And today I have one of those documents. I've got it from a big one, guys. I have got the internal Allyship Guidebook for the Coca-Cola Company, North America. It's a whole PowerPoint presentation. It's really long. I'm actually going to break up this video into 4 separate videos just to make sure that because I would be basically talking for a really long time if I did this in one long video. So we're going to go through this in a series of videos. Now, I want to make sure I say this. I genuinely believe that when organizations are implementing these things, I believe that they really do have positive intentions. I simply think that they haven't thought through this process until the very end to really ascertain what this is going to result in. I do. I don't think they have bad intentions of indoctrinating their employees into a little cult. I simply don't think they understand the full breadth of what this movement is and what it means. I believe that they genuinely think that they are doing this to create a more fair and just and equal society. And I believe that we're going to see that as we review this document, and I'm going to try to explain where they are going wrong, because I don't care, listen, I don't care about dunking on people. I don't care about dunking on companies. What I care about is actually solving problems. And for my money, nonsense like this, really important problems to solve. So we're going to go through this document. I'm going to talk about it. It's going to be a whole series of videos. This is part 1 of 4. But before we get into that, guys, if you like the content I'm creating on this channel, please make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up, turn on those notifications, do all that good stuff. If you think you're subscribed, YouTube may have made that decision for you. They are prone to do that. So just double check. If you want to be subscribed, just make sure you are. All right, let's dig into this. This is a document that an employee of Coca-Cola North America sent to me. Obviously, I'm going to protect their identity. And I just want to go through it and look at what one of the largest companies in the country is telling their North American employees. So it starts off, "Together we stand, together we must. Allyship Guidebook, a resource to drive inclusion and stand against racism for both future and current allies." Whatever affects one directly affects us all. Of course, it's kind of ironic that they're using a Martin Luther King Jr. quote there, because Martin Luther King also would have wanted to be judged on the content of his character rather than the color of his skin. Now, so this is their opening statement from their executives. I want to make one note though. So I received this document last week and I just hadn't had a chance to look at it. And I received an update from the employee that sent this to me just the other day. And they said, "Carlin, Jim Dickens has been mysteriously and suddenly retired from the organization." And I looked into some news stories about this, and yes, Jim here is now, I think at this point he is going to be in like a senior advisor role until February, but he is no longer actually the president of Coca-Cola North America as of like a day and a half ago. So who knows what happened there? The news stories did not happen. I don't know if it had anything to do with this or if it was something completely different. I don't want to speculate, but I do want to note that this dude's no longer in charge and we don't know why that is. All right, let's read their introductory message. Why allyship and what it means to me. The Coca-Cola Company is committed to making a difference in our communities and within our company. Acts of racism, violence, discrimination against Black Americans have exacerbated in recent months. These acts of intolerance have promoted the Coca-Cola Company to develop a holistic social justice action plan that brings our purpose to life to refresh the world and make a difference by addressing inequities, systematic racism, facilitating action, and creating an inclusive world where everyone is respected and treated equally." Now, I don't think that any of us would take issue with everyone being respected and treated equally. I have no issue with that. I want everyone to be respected and treated equally. But I think that it might benefit the Coca-Cola Company to acknowledge that they make soda. They make soda. They are not responsible for systemic racism and for fixing systemic racism. They make soda. That's what they do. Anchoring on the Social Justice Action Plan 4-pillar framework, listening, leading, investing, and advocating, we see an opportunity to provide education for all our employees on how we can each become allies in this work, support each other, and stand as one. So anytime you hear the word education, what they really mean is indoctrination to our way of thinking. When they say ally, what they mean is that you're going to comply with what we want you to say and what we want you to do and what we want you to shut your mouth and when we want you to speak up. It's a code word for basically compliance. This ideology, this social justice ideology, is not about what they're saying right here, which is to respect people and treat people equally. That is not what it is about. It is about power. It is about control. That's what it's about. We're seeing this over and over and over again. And when they're saying allies, what they're saying is we want to control you. We want to be in charge of what you think and what you read and where you go and when you speak and when you don't. That's what they're saying. If this was just about fairness and justice, we would have no issue. Let's keep going. Today, we are excited to announce the release of the Together We Stand, Together We Must Allyship Guidebook 1.0. This guidebook will be a first step in providing you with the tools to bring equality, inclusion, and social justice to our workplace and hopefully the world. We know that there is a great power in being an ally. It requires a level of bravery in yourself to stand up against oppression whenever you see it, instead of choosing to walk away or not engage. So this is important right here, because basically what they're saying is that we expect you to speak up instead of just minding your own business anytime that we tell you to. This is, you'll hear the phrases, silence is violence a lot. It's funny because you hear both silence is violence and words are violence, and it really depends on what they want you to do at any given moment. But what they're saying here is that it's not enough to just not be a racist person and to treat everyone well. That's not enough for us. We expect you to be little soldiers for us, to call out instances of racism anytime you see what could possibly be misconstrued to be an instance of racism, because everything is racist nowadays. Absolutely every dang thing, including keeping quiet. This actually happened in the knitting community, by the way. I haven't talked about this story much, but there was for those of you who don't know, I got introduced to social justice in the knitting world. There was actually a very well-known designer who just, when the social justice mobs were going around and bullying and attacking people, she just chose to stay silent. She just didn't say anything. Guess what? They went after her too. It wasn't enough to not speak up. It was that they expected you to speak up and parrot the words that they were giving you to say. Well, allies may have the luxury of walking away. Individuals in marginalized groups do not. Well, yes, you do, actually. If there is one thing the Coca-Cola company has, it is passionate employees like you who want to do the right thing. And that's what these people all play on. That's what they play on every single time, is that people do want to do the right thing. People, as a general rule, are not racist. We do not live in a racist country. People want to do the right thing, and what they're saying is that we're going to tell you what the right thing is, and you have to listen to us, and if you don't do exactly what we tell you to do, then you are not a good person. That is the message they're sending. We believe one of the first steps we can all take is to learn and build alliances across the organization. This will allow all employees to gain greater empathy and an understanding of the racism Black people encounter. I wonder why they're only focusing on Black people. I mean, conceivably, Coca-Cola has brown people working for them and Asian people working for them, and conceivably they don't just have black and white employees. So I find it a little bit quizzical that they are only focusing on racism against Black people. But if you read White Fragility, you probably understand why that is. Please take the time to review the guidebook and utilize the tools within to become an ally. Ally being capitalized because obviously we are committed to keeping this Allyship Guidebook updated with current and best practices. Feel free to share your feedback and recommendations through the employee feedback portal. Who wants to bet that no one's shared feedback through that portal because they're afraid that if they do, they're going to get fired, and they probably should be afraid. Thank you for being an ally. Together we stand. Together we must. And then what it has is a table of contents here. So here is how I'm going to break down this series of videos. We're going to do the introduction pages in this video. In the next one, we're going to do understanding systemic racism. In the next one, we're going to do actions you can take. And in the last one, we're going to do actions as a manager, glossary of terms, and closing messages. Let's dig in. The purpose of this guidebook. Over the past weeks, we've begun important discussions and actions around social justice as we continue to listen, lead, invest, and advocate. As a company, we must also listen to each other and advocate for a better future. You notice that in all of these documents, they say so many words and yet they say absolutely nothing. This is such an academic thing. Never take 3 words to say something when 87 will do. This is at the heart of allyship. It's so funny. I feel like I'm actually those dystopian novels where you have the loudspeaker saying, "This is at the heart of allyship, or the act of taking a stand against oppression as if it was your own." And these soft voices speaking to you over the loudspeakers and trying to indoctrinate you into the dystopian nightmare that is their ideology. That's what I feel like when I'm reading these documents. Now, more than ever, allyship is critical to creating environments where individuals of all backgrounds can succeed. Individuals of all backgrounds can succeed now, Coca-Cola. We all start in different places in life. That is absolutely true. But what is great about this country is that every single person is given opportunities to succeed. If you work hard, you stay focused, you don't get dragged into nonsense like this. Every single person out there is empowered to create their experience. Some might take different roads than others. It might be a harder path than others. But guess what? Obstacles to creating the life you want are not necessarily a bad thing. That's what builds character. That's what builds resilience. That's what gives you that's what gives you that sense of accomplishment when you finally make it and you look around and you're like, my life is awesome and I did this. If it was easy, it would mean nothing. It is a proactive, lifelong process of building relationships based on trust, consistency, and accountability. And it is critical to our growth behavior of inclusion in the Coca-Cola Company. This guidebook is internal. Haha, not anymore. Resource to provide tools as you work towards being an ally. While this resource is focused on being an ally to the Black community, allyship is applicable to advocate for any marginalized community. Each section is designed to meet you where you are and provide terms and elements to read, watch, and do. This document is for internal educational use only and should not be shared or provided to anyone other than employees of the Coca-Cola Company and its subsidiaries. Listen, when you piss off half your employees, and I'm not exaggerating, like literally half of your employees by instilling nonsense like this, you think they aren't going to share it with the world? The content in this guide has been developed and curated by employees and contains articles, playlists, and links created by third parties. The purpose of sharing this content is typo, to provoke learning and listening and is not intended to convey the company's support or endorsement of the content itself. So you hear that? We have a disclaimer from Coca-Cola. It is not intended to convey the company's support or endorsement of the content itself. We have their little disclaimer, but they're still distributing this. All right. This is a video. So I actually haven't, so you know, guys, I really am kind of reacting to this stuff in real time. Let's watch this video and I'm going to stop and react as I see fit.
An ally to me is advocating for fair and equal treatment of everyone, even those that don't look like or think like you do, and being willing to speak up even when it's uncomfortable.
Allyship means everything.
So let's just stop right there. So an ally is someone that advocates for everyone, even people who don't look or think like you do. If that was the actual definition of ally, you'd have no issue from me. But that is not the definition of ally. And I'm going to bet that based on this document being distributed and people seeing where Coca-Cola stands on this, I'm going to be willing to bet that the Trump supporters who work there that think differently than probably the VP of HR and the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, I'm going to bet that they don't feel comfortable standing up and saying what they think anymore. Like, why would they? They probably think they're going to get fired. So this is not about protecting people and making a place where people can think differently. This is about creating a place for people who think like you. All right, I have to find the point. Okay.
Those that don't look like or think like you do, and being willing to speak up even when it's uncomfortable.
Allyship means everything to me. It means that I'm not alone and that there are people who, even though they're not directly impacted by the issues that I may face personally, they're still willing to show up and fight alongside with me.
To me, allyship begins with my listening and learning, having good, honest, and sometimes very hard conversations, standing up for injustice when I see it, demanding change when and where it's appropriate, not remaining silent when people make comments that are racist, lending my hands and my voice when called upon to do so. I'm committed to being an ally and a voice for my friends, my colleagues, my neighbors, and for those who have been silenced for far too long.
Is it just me or does he look like he was like in a hostage situation? He kind of does, doesn't he? I mean, maybe he actually believes this stuff. I don't know, but he looked like he was a hostage.
Allyship to me is compassion, empathy, and most importantly, acknowledgement.
Allyship is the willingness to stand with and fight for the rights of others.
Okay, again, I have to point this out. Like, to stand with and fight for the rights of others, that's fine. I have no issue with that. But what law, I mean, we're talking about rights. Rights are reflected in the laws that we have. So what laws are preventing people from living the life that they want to live? Or what internal policies at Coca-Cola, since this is an internal document, are preventing people from being successful there? That's what we should be focusing on. And those are things that the company can actually fix. If Coca-Cola has policies that are preventing its employees of color from full access to the same opportunities that their white employees have, then Coca-Cola absolutely should fix that. That is the responsibility of their executives. Is that what they're saying here? I'm sure I strongly doubt it, but that's the impression I get.
To me, allyship is action-based. It goes beyond being woke, and it's about practicing and celebrating real human inclusivity in action and not just words.
Inclusivity. It goes beyond being woke, though. I mean, listen, they just said that, right? It goes beyond just thinking like we do or pretending you think like we do. We want you to speak up. We want to tell you what to say.
Allyship means to me when you see something unfair, uncivil, unjust, and you say something, especially when no one you know is around or you get any accolades for it.
When was the last time that any of these people or Coca-Cola stood up for someone on the right side of the aisle that was treated unfairly? Listen, so I have a friend of mine, Steven, who I met through the walkaway movement. He is the nicest, sweetest guy you've ever met in your life. He just really just has a heart of gold. I have so much love for him. And he joined Twitter yesterday, and within one day, Twitter has already restricted his account. Why? Because he disrupts the story they're trying to tell about people of color and what they think. So who's speaking up for him? I know I spoke up for him, or any of these people who, because I believe, I could be getting this wrong, Stephen, I'm sorry if I get this wrong, but I believe that he is a mix of black and Indian. So he is definitely a person of color, definitely would apply this document to him, right? Who's speaking up for him?
Allyship means to me not looking at life through the conditioned lens of my eyes, heart, or mind, but to truly take a step in the shoes of somebody facing racism.
Did he literally just say that I shouldn't look at life through my own eyes? I should deny what I'm seeing? And I think that that's different from acknowledging that other people have different experiences or trying to understand the experiences of black men and women, which are very much different than someone like me, a pasty white girl. And I get that. But he literally just said, I should just not, it doesn't matter what my eyes see or what my ears hear. I have to listen to what the Social Justice Brigade tells me to say.
I'm committed now more than ever to continue listening, learning, and being anti-racist. Because being an ally means taking action.
So Coca-Cola has now just set the expectation that all of their employees it's not enough to just not be racist and to treat everyone the same regardless of the color of their skin. Coca-Cola is actively setting the expectation that their employees are going to be anti-racist.
In reference to allyship, I have one ask. Be bold enough to defend me when I'm not in the room.
All right, that's our little video. Let's keep going. This guidebook is meant to meet you where you are. Allyship is a continuum. It's built on the bedrock of self-education and being more empathetic. While this document is focused on being an ally to the Black community, allyship is relevant to advocating for any marginalized community. Bedrock, education, empathy, honesty, communication, action, and trust. So what this training does in organizations, you want to talk about the impact of this. Education is just learning about stuff that's being indoctrinated into their little cult. Empathy. This type of training will drastically decrease the amount of empathy that your employees show to one another, because it will all be centered around do as I say the words I want you to say, hold your fist up in solidarity, and if you don't do that, you're not part of the group, and we don't have to have empathy for you anymore. We've seen this over and over and over again in these riots. We saw all these videos just the other day of people just trying to eat food at a restaurant and being accosted by rioters and forced to put their hands up in solidarity. That's not empathy, folks. That's not empathy. Honesty. One of the most important factors that teams and organizations need to have in order to be effective and resilient and as productive as possible is a thing called psychological safety, which is essentially where team members trust one another. It's where they feel like they have each other's backs. guess what, folks? If your team members are tattling on each other and calling each other out and having daily struggle sessions around who is an ally and who is not, that honesty, that communication, that action, and that trust are all going to be destroyed. Limited awareness. So there's a process to becoming an ally. We start off with limited awareness. Ask yourself, do I see racism as a big issue at the Coca-Cola company? If I do see racism at work, is it my job to speak up? So fundamentally what they're saying is that your answer to this question should be yes. Coca-Cola is an inherently racist company. There's no other way to look at this because they want you to progress up the up the ladder to ally. So how else can we read this? How else can we read this? Like, is it acceptable for people to say no? Coca-Cola is not a racist company. And frankly, and I'm going to go back to those executives that we saw right here. Not this guy that's not the president anymore, but we'll go to Valerie and Lori. If Coca-Cola is a racist company, then why haven't you done anything to fix it? You are the Senior VP of Human Resources and the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. If you are actively encouraging your employees to answer yes, do I see racism as a big issue at the Coca-Cola company? Then what have you done and why didn't you do anything sooner? I mean, you both appear to be women of color, right? I assume you didn't just slide into those roles last week. I assume you've probably been at the company for a while. I could be wrong about that. I didn't look up their history, but most of the time when you have senior executives, they don't just, appear out of nowhere. So what, if systemic racism is really that big of an issue at Coca-Cola, what have you done about it? Why is this guidebook even necessary? Because we have two who I'm assuming are smart, capable women of color in senior leadership roles who are now encouraging their employees to say, yes, Coca-Cola is a racist company. Why? All right, let's move up. Awareness. Ask yourself, do I continue to learn and build a greater understanding about racism? In other words, do I continue to read the indoctrination materials that they want me to? Do I recognize structural racism at the Coca-Cola company? Again, if that exists, then why did you just discover it and why haven't you done anything about it? And if structural racism exists at the Coca-Cola company, then how is it possible, if structural racism exists, that Valerie and Lori, who again are two women of color, ended up in senior leadership roles at the Coca-Cola company? If structural racism exists, seems to me like they had the opportunity to end up in those senior leadership roles. And I bet you they're not the only people of color in them, and that is a good thing. That is a positive thing. That shows that Coca-Cola has already done the work that they needed to do. Now, is it perfect? I mean, nothing's perfect, and everything can always be improved, and everything is a work in progress. But to actually encourage your employees to say, not only is Coca-Cola a racist company, but that they recognize structural racism, how could they possibly, when obviously people of color are being promoted into senior leadership roles? Next up, active. Ask yourself, have I spoken up against racial bias at work? Have I participated in and am comfortable around having conversations about racism? So in this category, what they're actively encouraging their employees to do is to participate in struggle sessions, which is going to destroy team cohesion. It's going to destroy team morale. It's going to piss off an awful lot of people. And, good luck with your bottom line, Coca-Cola, if this actually ends up being implemented far and wide in the organization. You're not going to like the results, I promise you. And then finally, we get to our last stage of being an ally. Ask yourself, am I proactive in fighting oppression as if it was my own within and outside of the Coca-Cola company? Have I actively built allyship capabilities of myself and others? Again, I just have to question, if racism is that big of a problem at Coca-Cola, then why is this, did they just discover this? And why is it the responsibility, if you did just discover it, then why is it the responsibility of your average everyday employees to fix it? Why isn't the leadership team fixing it? Or is this PowerPoint presentation, is this the fix to the structural racism at Coca-Cola, that you issue a PowerPoint presentation? Oh my God, this stuff drives me insane. It really does, because it's crazy. All right, guys. That is the end of this first video. I'm going to do the next video. In the next video, we're going to talk about this section of what it means to be an ally. I'll be back at you soon with more of this illustrious PowerPoint document.